energy vampire. When I was a kid, and many other times, for whatever reason, when I was in the suggestive state or placed under LSD, I claimed I was an energy vampire. Now, here's the thing: I have no reason for ever, even remotely in my childhood, as far as I can remember, uh, believing I was a true energy, or where I got the idea, where I even got the idea of being an energy vampire. The first people were the Grateful Dead people when they kidnapped me and I was holding onto the seat and screaming and I didn't want to go anywhere in the sunshine LSD. I told that guy I was an energy vampire, and if he gave the hatred, the negative energy he had to me, I could use that to bring down this church. They were the first people. Um, the second person I confessed I was an energy vampire to was the Oats people. When I touched that girl's hand, that guy was threatening to kill me with the weird dagger, and they shoved that root in my mouth. Somewhere in between there, I confessed to him that I was an energy vampire, and if he just gave me his negative energy, I would generate more power to stop this evil church that these people, the Oats people, didn't like. That's two random dissociative groups. Yeah. That I lied to. Maybe not lied. My subconscious seems to legitimately believe that I'm some kind of energy vampire. And I want to. The end of this, I'm gonna put down a Bobby theory. As to if I am an energy vampire, exactly how it works. So after that, the lady that raped me, the one from the Santeria cult, when I was under her hypnosis, I once again said I was an energy vampire. When I was talking to Stu at Ingalls, I told him I was an energy vampire, and then he told me I was an empath, and then I told him no, I'm an energy vampire. And then he told me I'm not allowed to be an energy vampire. When I was in high school, not being under hypnosis, I spoke about when I was acting out as Ed and being really loud. I felt like nobody could hurt me. I felt like nobody could stop me, and if I got enough people's attention and there was enough energy going into me, I felt like I was becoming unstoppable. This is an attribute of an energy vampire. There was a girl I worked with named Jordan Brooks at or was it Clark? I don't know. I think it was Clark Brooke Clark or something. And when I worked at Ingalls, she had a headache one time and I touched her head and it went away. I had the same thing happen. I was dealing with a teacher who was like feeling sick and I touched her head and her sickness went away. And leading up to dealing with the Church of the Anal Eaten Mummy directly, after the Oats people, after dealing with Stu failing to kill me, there's a bunch of spirituality in between there, but I'm not going to talk about it. Because there's a lot of spirituality things I actually do that I simply don't talk about. But I did, under hypnosis, the suggestive state, I literally explained to Anal Eaten Mummy God how I viewed the world and how energy worked. And we had some disagreements on it. But he said to me, when I was at the Wendy's, I told Anal Eaten Mummy God, because he basically told me, alluded to, he regretted the kidnapping of Augusta Gore and he wanted to give George Miller back Augusta Gore. And he regretted what he had done. And he regretted a bunch of things he did. And he said it was easier to believe that he was a god than it was to deal with the reality of the atrocities he committed. To which I told him, I want you to put those in a box and then give them to me. and just know I have them. So they got me really high on LSD, and Anal Eaten Mummy God confessed to me everybody he had ever murdered and how he murdered them. And then that was locked in a box, and then he contacted me and told me he was feeling amazing. But how was I going to treat him? That he was feeling better, but he wanted to know how he was going to get treated. Was he going to get better? And I told him, I've already treated you. You gave me all the negative energy you have, and I'm holding it. And if you ever want it back, all you have to do is call me or talk to me, and I'll give it back to you. And he said, no, I don't want it back. I don't ever want it back. I want to be free of the sorrowful soul. So he hung up on me. Now, this is Bobby therapy. I do this a couple times. If somebody's severely traumatized and they're really messed up and that trauma is hindering them severely, I will simply tell them, tell me your trauma, and then either write it down or accept on every level that you have handed me your trauma. I am the keeper of it, and I'm holding on to it. And I have done this many, many, many times to help people get over a traumatizing event. It is my version of a song of healing. I don't know if it works 100%. I don't, but it worked for Anal Eaten Mummy God. So I also asked Anal Eaten Mummy God, while he was in a suggestive state, to give me his rage and hatred. And I pulled that negativity into myself. The Belly Girl. The Belly Girl, I believe, was killed when I was working at Papa John's. Because that's what makes most sense. But I also believe I had contact with her in middle school and even high school. So, I don't know what the Belly Girl's name was. But she was absolutely terrified of these people. And I remember thinking, powers of purification, and I give people hope. What if I don't have the powers of purification? What if my abilities are actually a lot simpler? What if I just pull all the chaos and negativity out of a person and all that's left is hope? Energy, negative or otherwise. And you guys gotta think, like, if what I'm saying is accurate, this implies that my entire life, from when those guys abducted me in the van, to all the way up to the point that weird guy was doing that ritual I mentioned, to countless other people who probably had run-ins with this church, were fucking depressed, and even my ex-cuddle buddy, because I also pulled negative energy out of her. We're all suppliers of the energy I needed to bring down the church, and I don't operate off of positive thoughts and prayers. I actually operate off of negative energy. Something like Deity Link in Majora's Mask. I'm some kind of Ashra or Wrathful Demon. And I remember this culminating when I was at Papa John's with Blondie, and once again, I claimed, for whatever reason, when I was high on LSD, and I wasn't high by my own willpower, that I was an energy demon, and Blondie said, you're not. And then he asked me, does it ever feel like my rage and hatred come out of nowhere? As if I don't know where they came from. And I said, yeah, which is a sign of an empath, but it's also a sign of an energy vampire, meaning I'm feeding off of other people's inactions or feelings, and they're pushing me to do something. I guess praying to me will do you no good, but offering me your negativity will do you more good than it could possibly ever do if you just willingly give me your trauma. I, for some reason or somehow, can alchemize that into physical action in the real world. This is my theory. on the energy vampire, I'm going to call it crisis in my life. I don't think I'm a normal energy vampire that just sucks the life out of people. I think I feed off of people's negative energies, but it's not suffering, causing them suffering, but rather taking the suffering out of them. And this can explain why I'm so obsessed with helping people. If you think about it, if I'm a starving energy vampire that feels the persistent need to constantly drain other people's negative energies. And when I was president, I told the wives that I was dying because I couldn't pull negativity out of people's lives. I was causing misery when I was president. I wasn't absorbing it. I was making it and wasn't absorbing it. I was sending it outward, and it was somehow killing me. Keep in mind that I was high on drugs when I started talking about being an energy vampire. I was also high on drugs when I talked about being an airplane pilot. I was also high on drugs. One of the conversations I had at Wendy's with Anal Eating Mummy God that I recently remembered was I talked about beehives making penicillin, dead corpse, dealing with corpses, and women like Lori Beth Denberg from that show, All That, the really fat girl, with her haircut. They had that haircut and they wore muumuus like she wore, but they were skinny. And I started talking about having all these women that were skinny with these out-of-date haircuts and out-of-date dresses. And being in a compound and hanging out in the desert with a bunch of people I didn't know. And Anal Eating Mummy God told me, well, did you know the members of our church can reincarnate? And I think that you're basically a reincarnation because of your description. And he told me that that describes every member of the fundamental side of their religion. And the area I described, he said, actually existed at one point. Yeah. And he was like, so what he believed I was, this is what the former president of the church believed I was, he believed that I was a member that successfully came back. And not only did I have memories from my past life, I actually remembered who I was. And remember I told you in that other video he called me Bosun? He said that my name was Bosun. And I was his friend in a past life. I don't really go into all this stuff. I don't really care what I was in a past life or what I am. I mean, what matters is what I am now. And if I was a member of this church in a past life, I must have been a real fool. I told him I remembered going into these really empty buildings performing bizarre rituals. I remember music without dancing. I remembered noting that the brain was a repetitive computer that enjoyed repetition. And I remember even in my past life, I had an obsession with psychology, and these were all theories I kept to myself because they were considered taboo amongst the members. I described a series of events that happened in the 40s and 50s. And Anal Eating Mummy God basically told me that there's no way I could have remembered these things if I didn't have like a past life thing. Even the wives when I was out there, Jasmine, I don't think they ever successfully got me to talk about my past lives or whatever. Once again, take this with a grain of salt. I don't really do spiritual stuff because it'd sound even crazier if I was like, oh, this stuff is true. But as for being an energy vampire, I do believe that is a real thing because they're even recognized in psychology. So, there's that. And all across the world, there have always been energy vampires. Yeah. So, what if the real reason for my inaction is I simply haven't built up enough negative energiosphere in order to take action? What if I'm a weapon, some type of bomb, some type of device? Uh, and I don't know if that makes me lesser than a god, but even in Hinduism, Ashura could generate enough power to rival gods and even stop gods. Uh, which I believe is something far more better and far more powerful than possibly anything on the planet. Um, I guess trust in Bob, uh, and surrender your negative energy to me. And when your negative energy is pulled out of you, you will feel the infinite power of hope that has always been there. Um, or maybe this is just a crazy fucking rant from a LSD suggestive state and a child that came up with some kind of idea. Yeah. Um, I don't know why specifically. It started with Lori Beth Denberg. From All That, and her Miss Fingerly dress with the wig, or maybe that's her real hair. I don't know. I think it's a wig. It was those haircuts and it was those dresses that I spoke to Anal Eaton Mummy God about, and Anal Eaton Mummy God was interested in the interwoven patterns on the dresses. He was interested in the underwear the women were wearing and the underwear I was wearing. Um, he was interested in a bunch of things, and I just told him it's all outdated underwear. It's all outdated crap that nobody wears anymore. I was like, I spoke about going to some area with water, like a beach or something, and I was wearing like 1940s swim trunks that were black and white stripes. Um, there was some guy there, and I was tracking him, and I think I ended up murdering him, but that happened in a past life, so I don't know if I can go to prison for that, but whatever. He was a black guy. I don't know what he did. But yeah. Uh, I was at like a pool or something. Like I said, it was like a whites only beach. Uh, and well, one of the things that Anal Eaton Mummy God questioned me about is it was a white and blue station wagon memory that's never made any sense, but multiple times when I was in Florida as a child, my mom has never owned a white and blue station wagon, ever. Uh, but I, for some reason, distinctly remember driving one and being in one when I was a kid, and I've never been in one when I was a kid. I even described it and drew pictures of it. Uh, and Anal Eaton Mummy God wanted to know a lot more about that memory, so I told him about driving to the beach in a blue and white station wagon. I told him about the women. I told him about a bunch of other bizarre, weird things from my past life. I told him there was some weird obsession with honey and honeycombs and bees. Uh, that in the early parts of my life, I thought it was everything, and then in the later parts of my life, I realized it was nothing. And yeah, I don't know. Enjoy that.